Hey guys, tonight we're pushing open the swinging doors of history and wandering straight into the pastel-colored, heavily lacquered, slightly unhinged world of the 1950s beauty salon. Forget everything you know about modern self-care. Forget calming playlists, eucalyptus towels, and water that doesn't taste faintly of plastic. Tonight, glamour is not a treat. It's an endurance sport. This is a place where beauty demanded patience, courage, and the willingness to sit very still while questionable liquids were applied to your scalp. The air is thick enough to chew, made up of equal parts hairspray, perfume, and optimism. Roughly 40% of the oxygen has been replaced by aerosol. The most advanced piece of technology in the room is a hood dryer that sounds like a jet engine warming up for takeoff and feels like it might, at any moment, achieve liftoff with you still underneath it. Maybe you think the hardest part of getting ready today is finding a matching sock, or remembering where you left your lip balm. Maybe you consider a bad hair day to be mildly annoying. Well, tonight's journey is going to recalibrate that definition entirely. By the end of this story, you may find yourself deeply grateful for every quiet trip to the drugstore, every hair tool that didn't scorch your ears, and every stylist who never casually reached for chemicals strong enough to dissolve paint, plastic, and possibly small mammals. Because in the 1950s, getting your hair done wasn't a quick errand. It was a commitment, a ritual, sometimes a gamble. You didn't walk into a beauty salon expecting comfort. You walked in prepared to sit, wait, endure, and emerge changed, physically, emotionally, and occasionally structurally. Before we get rolling, do me a small favor. If you enjoy these slow dives into strange corners of history, go ahead and like the video and subscribe. Only if you genuinely enjoy it, and drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's strangely comforting to know who else is drifting off with us around the world. Now get comfortable. Let your shoulders drop. Let the day fade a little, because in just a moment we're going to step fully inside that salon, where the chairs squeak, the dryers roar, the gossip circulates faster than the air, and beauty is achieved one uncomfortable hour at a time. Tonight we're entering a 1950s beauty salon. The first thing you notice isn't the sight, it's the smell. Even before the door opens, there's a faint cloud lingering on the sidewalk. A sharp, sweet haze of hairspray, setting lotion, cheap perfume, and something vaguely medicinal. It clings to the air like a promise and a warning all at once. The door swings open with a soft jingle of bells, and just like that, the outside world recedes. The street noise dulls, the temperature changes, the light shifts. Inside, everything is pastel. Not bright, not bold. Softened colors meant to soothe and reassure. Mint green walls, pale pink trim, cream-colored ceilings that have quietly absorbed years of smoke, steam, and ambition. The floor is linoleum, polished until it shines but never quite clean. It grips slightly beneath your shoes, as if reluctant to let anyone leave too quickly. Somewhere near the wall, a lone bobby pin glints under the fluorescent lights, forgotten and permanent. Rows of vinyl chairs line the room, each one wide, low, and faintly squeaky. They're upholstered in cheerful colors, robin's egg blue, butter yellow, coral, but they've long since lost their innocence. The vinyl is cracked at the edges, repaired in places with care that suggests both pride and resignation. Above each chair a hood dryer waits. They hang there like futuristic helmets, poised and patient, their cords trailing upward into the ceiling. In the early quiet, they're still, silent. But you can almost feel the memory of their roar lingering in the air, like an echo that hasn't quite faded. It's early, earlier than you'd expect. The salon hasn't fully awakened yet. This is the moment before the orchestra tunes, before the coffee pot finishes its first cycle, before the conversations gather speed and volume. The windows are slightly fogged, either from the weather outside or from whatever chemical haze still clings to the glass from yesterday. The world beyond looks muted, distant, like it belongs to someone else. Inside, time behaves differently. Here, clocks matter less than rituals. Appointments are suggestions. Waiting is assumed. This isn't a place you rush through. It's a place you enter knowing you'll be here a while. The air hums faintly, not with sound, but with potential. Somewhere in the back you hear the gentle clatter of bottles being moved, glass tapping glass. A drawer opens. A towel is shaken loose. The building itself seems to stretch awake, joints creaking softly after a night's rest. A radio murmurs quietly from behind the front desk, tuned to a local station. The song playing is cheerful but restrained, the kind of music meant to fill space rather than demand attention. No one is really listening yet. This is the calm before everything begins. You take a few steps in and the door closes behind you with a final little chime. The sound seals you in. You're no longer part of the morning outside. You've crossed a threshold. Beauty salons in the 1950s weren't conveniences. They were commitments. You didn't stop in for 5 minutes and leave refreshed. You came prepared. Prepared to sit. Prepared to wait. Prepared to surrender control for the better part of a morning, sometimes an entire afternoon. The salon wasn't an errand. It was an event. Women planned around it. Children were dropped off. Groceries waited. Lunch was delayed. The world adjusted itself around this ritual of rollers, sprays, and patience. You hesitate near the entrance, not because you're unsure where to go, but because there's always a pause at the beginning, a moment where you gather yourself before becoming part of the room. There's something about this space that demands respect, or at least acceptance. You glance around. The mirrors are spotless, but not reflective in a flattering way. They don't soften or forgive. They show exactly what's there, which feels bold in a room dedicated to transformation. The counters are lined with bottles, some labeled, some not. Pastel liquids sit beside clear ones, thick gels next to watery solutions. A few labels are peeling at the corners, curling like tired smiles. Others have been replaced with handwritten notes that say very little. No instructions are visible. No warnings. No explanations. In this era, you didn't ask too many questions about what went on your head. You trusted the process. You trusted the hands that had done this 1,000 times before. The chairs are still mostly empty. A single woman sits near the window, coat folded neatly on her lap, hair already set in curlers the size of soup cans. She stares forward with the calm focus of someone who knows this routine well. She nods to you. Not in greeting exactly, but in acknowledgement. You are here now. That's enough. There's a faint click as someone adjusts a thermostat. It's never quite warm enough in a beauty salon. Even when the dryers are roaring, the room holds a persistent chill. Perhaps it's intentional. Perhaps it's just the nature of a place where water, air, and chemicals constantly collide. A stylist appears from the back, tying an apron around her waist. Her hair is already perfect, sculpted, lifted, immovable. She moves with practiced efficiency, setting out combs, aligning scissors, lining up bottles so their labels face outward. This is preparation, not performance. The salon runs on repetition, on muscle memory, on motions so familiar they barely register as work. There's a comfort in that. You realize something as you stand there, breathing in the air heavy with hairspray and hope. This place exists slightly outside ordinary life. Inside these walls, the rules change. You don't talk about politics loudly. You don't rush the process. You don't question the chair, the cape, or the dryer. You submit. And in return, you're offered something intangible. Time to sit, time to be cared for, time to disappear into routine while someone else decides what comes next. It's not indulgence. It's endurance wrapped in ritual. There's humor here too, though it hasn't fully arrived yet. It waits patiently like everything else. It will come later when the dryers roar and the gossip swells and someone realizes their bangs are an inch shorter than planned. There's danger, subtle and unspoken. Chemical danger, social danger. The quiet risk of walking out looking very different than you imagined. But for now, none of that matters. Right now, it's just the beginning. The early morning salon holds its breath. The chairs wait. The mirrors watch. And you, standing there in 1956, are about to take your place. So go ahead, take a seat. Let the day unfold, without you needing to manage it. There's nothing to decide yet. No conversation to join. No dryer screaming overhead. Just the soft hum of anticipation, the pastel calm, and the knowledge that once you sit down, the ritual will begin, slowly, deliberately, and entirely on its own time. Stay here for a moment longer. The chaos will come soon enough. The salon floor reveals itself slowly, not all at once, because this is a place designed for lingering, not scanning. At first glance, it seems simple enough. A long rectangular room, mirrors lining one wall, chairs arranged in obedient rows, and counters crowded with tools whose purposes are not always immediately clear. But the longer you stand there, the more layers appear. Every object feels slightly overused, slightly permanent, as though it has absorbed decades of conversations, sighs, and quiet personal reckonings. The layout is practical, but not efficient in the modern sense. Space isn't optimized for speed, it's organized for ritual. Chairs are spaced just close enough that conversations overlap, but far enough apart to maintain the illusion of privacy. Each station has its own mirror, though the mirrors reflect not just the person sitting in front of them, but fragments of everyone else, too. Faces float in the glass at odd angles. Hair appears and disappears as people shift. No one ever looks completely alone here, even when they are. The chairs themselves are low and wide, built to keep you seated longer than you planned. Their vinyl upholstery shines faintly under the fluorescent lights, cracked at the seams, patched where repairs have been made quietly and without ceremony. When you sit down, they exhale a small sigh of air, as if acknowledging your arrival. Some chairs wobble just enough to make you aware of it, but not enough to justify asking for a different one. The armrests are cool to the touch, worn smooth by thousands of nervous fingers tapping, gripping, surrendering. You learn quickly that once you sit, you stay. Getting up again feels disruptive, almost rude, like leaving a church pew mid-service. Above each chair looms the hood dryer, suspended like a metallic halo with a temper. Even at rest, they dominate the room. Their curved plastic domes catch the light and reflect distorted versions of the salon below. They are mounted on long adjustable arms, giving them an unsettling sense of mobility, as if they might drift closer on their own if left unchecked. When they're off, they sit silently, patient and vaguely threatening. When they're on, they transform the room entirely. The sound is not just loud, it's enveloping. A deep, roaring hum that vibrates through the floor and into your bones. Conversations bend around it. Thoughts stretch and slow beneath it. The dryers don't just dry hair, they mark time. The linoleum floor beneath your feet is a patchwork of shine and wear. It has been scrubbed, waxed, and polished so many times that it no longer pretends to be new. It sticks slightly to your shoes, especially near the stations where hairspray settles like invisible glue. Walking across it produces a soft, reluctant sound, as though the floor itself is tired of people coming and going. Along the edges, near the baseboards, small relics gather, bobby pins that slipped unnoticed from laps or sleeves. A lone curler clip, bent just enough to be useless. A smudge of setting lotion that no amount of mopping quite removes. These things are never picked up immediately. They wait. Someone will notice them eventually, or they'll be swept away at closing time, folded into the anonymous pile of the day's remains. The windows at the front of the salon are large, meant to let in light and advertise activity, but they rarely offer a clear view. Steam from wash stations, heat from dryers, and the constant churn of warm air fog the glass until the outside world becomes a blur. Pedestrians pass by as soft shapes. Cars slide past like shadows. From inside, the street feels distant and unimportant, like something happening in another life. Occasionally, someone will wipe a small, clear patch in the glass with their sleeve, peer out briefly, and then let it cloud over again. There's rarely anything worth seeing out there once you're inside. Before the salon fills, there's a particular quiet that exists nowhere else. It's not silence exactly. It's a waiting quiet. Bottles clink softly as they're rearranged. Drawers open and close with muted thuds. A broom swishes once or twice, more out of habit than necessity. The radio hums in the background, its volume kept deliberately low, as if not to disturb the room while it gathers itself. This early moment belongs more to the space than to the people. The salon is stretching, preparing to do what it does best. There's a sense that once the first dryer clicks on, this calm will vanish completely. Time behaves differently here, even before the chairs fill. Minutes don't rush, they stack. You might glance at the clock and swear it hasn't moved, only to realize later that an entire hour has quietly passed. No one seems bothered by this. In fact, it's expected. The salon operates on an unspoken agreement that once you enter, you give up your relationship with the outside schedule. Appointments are guides, not promises. Waiting is not an inconvenience, it's part of the process. The longer you wait, the more legitimate your visit feels. Rushing would undermine the seriousness of what's about to happen. As more clients arrive, the room changes tone but not pace. Coats are folded carefully and placed on hooks. Handbags are set beneath chairs like offerings. People lower themselves into seats with the familiarity of regulars settling into their places. Conversations begin softly, often with comments about the weather or the length of the wait, but they don't demand responses. It's understood that talking is optional. Participation ebbs and flows. You can listen without speaking for an entire morning and still feel fully involved. The hood dryers begin to come alive one by one, each activation announced by a sharp click followed by the slow swell of noise. The first dryer always sounds loudest, as though breaking a spell. After that, the room adjusts. The collective volume rises, but no one reacts. The sound becomes the new baseline. Words are spoken slightly louder, then a little louder still, until shouting feels normal and silence feels awkward. The dryers create pockets of isolation beneath their domes. Women sit with their heads enclosed, magazines balanced on their laps, eyes half-lidded, as though meditating through force. From the outside they look detached, sealed away. From the inside the sound is overwhelming, almost comforting in its consistency. Waiting in a 1950s beauty salon is not idle time. It's an enforced pause. You can't multitask. You can't scroll. You can't leave without disrupting the flow of the room. You wait because waiting is required, and because everyone else is doing the same. The rhythm becomes hypnotic. Sit, watch, listen, shift slightly, sit again. The mirrors reflect the same movements over and over, creating a loop that feels endless, but oddly reassuring. Nothing urgent happens here, even when something goes wrong. There's anticipation in the air, but it's quiet, contained. No one knows exactly how they'll look when they leave, and that uncertainty hums beneath every conversation. You can sense it in the way people glance at the mirrors, then look away. In the way fingers trace the edge of a magazine without turning the page. In the way shoulders relax only once a stylist approaches. Until then, you are suspended between what you were and what you might become, and the waiting makes that space feel larger. Surrender happens gradually. First you surrender your coat, then your sense of urgency, then eventually your sense of control. The salon floor facilitates this gently but firmly. There is nowhere else to stand, nothing else to do. The chairs encourage stillness. The dryers demand patience. The mirrors remind you that you are being observed, even when no one is looking directly at you. Over time, resistance fades. You stop wondering how long it will take. You stop thinking about what comes next. You exist in the present moment, framed by vinyl and linoleum, surrounded by a soundscape of hums, clicks, and murmured voices. This is why time slows here. Not because the clock stops, but because attention narrows. The world contracts to the length of the salon floor. Outside responsibilities blur and lose their sharp edges. Inside, everything is repetitive and predictable. Even the chaos, when it comes, follows familiar patterns. There's safety in that, a strange comfort in knowing that no matter what happens, it will happen slowly, deliberately, and in full view of others who understand exactly what you're enduring. As the room continues to fill, the early quiet dissolves, but the underlying rhythm remains unchanged. Chairs squeak, dryers roar. The floor holds its secrets. Bobby pins disappear and reappear. The windows stay fogged. And you, seated somewhere among it all, wait without needing to know how long, already halfway surrendered to the strange, deliberate pace of a place where time doesn't rush. It settles. Doris is already there when you notice her, which feels intentional. She doesn't announce herself. She doesn't need to. She exists at the front desk the way a courthouse exists at the center of a town, immovable, unquestioned, quietly powerful. The desk itself is a modest structure, laminate-topped, edges rounded smooth by decades of elbows, leaning in for favors and explanations. It sits just inside the entrance, positioned so that no one enters or exits the salon without passing directly through Doris's field of vision. This is not accidental. Nothing about Doris's placement is accidental. She sits upright in her chair, posture perfect, hair immaculately set into a permanent wave that defies gravity and weather alike. There are rumors about how she maintains it. Some say wire mesh. Others say a proprietary setting lotion mixed in the back room and never written down. Whatever the method, her hair never moves. Not when she laughs, not when she sighs, not when she delivers bad news. It stands as a visual reminder that control is possible if you commit to it fully. In front of her is the appointment book. Not a calendar, not a notebook, but a book. Thick, heavy, with pages that feel important before you even see what's written on them. The spine is cracked from use, the cover slightly warped, but it is treated with reverence. Doris handles it the way a librarian handles a rare manuscript. She doesn't flip pages carelessly. She turns them slowly, deliberately, one at a time, smoothing each page with her palm as though calming it. This book is the salon's memory. Everything that happens here passes through it first. Beside the book sits a clipboard, always within reach. The clipboard holds index cards, each one filled out in Doris's precise handwriting. Names, times, notes, written in shorthand only she understands. A small star, a line through a name, a word underlined twice. These marks are not random. They mean something, and Doris remembers exactly what. She doesn't need to consult the cards often. They are more symbolic than practical, proof that nothing is forgotten, nothing is misplaced. Doris looks up as you approach. Her eyes scan quickly, efficiently, taking inventory. She notices your coat, your shoes, the way you're standing. She remembers if you've been here before, and if you have, she remembers how you behaved. Were you late? Did you reschedule? Did you complain? Did you tip? These details are not written down. They live somewhere behind her eyes, catalogued neatly, ready to be retrieved at a moment's notice. The receptionist in a 1950s beauty salon is not an assistant. She is a gatekeeper. She controls access not just to chairs and stylists, but to approval, belonging, and social standing within these walls. Doris decides who gets squeezed in and who waits, who gets the senior stylist and who is handed off to the new girl with shaking hands, who is offered coffee and who is simply told to sit. Her power is subtle, but it is absolute. You hand her your appointment card. She takes it without comment, glances at it, then looks back at you. There is a pause, just long enough to make you wonder if you've done something wrong. Then she nods once and slides the card beneath the clipboard. You have passed the first test. You are officially accounted for. The salon operates on hierarchy, and Doris sits at the top of it, even above the stylists in some ways. The stylists may wield scissors and chemicals, but Doris controls the flow of bodies. She decides how the day unfolds. If two clients arrive at the same time for the same chair, Doris resolves it. If a stylist calls in sick, Doris reorganizes the entire schedule without raising her voice. If a shipment of perm solution is late, Doris knows before anyone else and has already adjusted expectations accordingly. She answers the phone with a voice that is warm but unyielding. "Good morning, marvelous main salon. This is Doris." The phrase never changes. The tone shifts just slightly depending on who's calling. There is the tone for regulars, friendly but firm. The tone for newcomers, polite with an edge of evaluation. The tone for difficult clients, sweet and immovable. Doris can say no in a way that sounds like yes, and yes in a way that sounds like a favor you should be grateful for. The unspoken rules of the salon pass through her desk like a filter. You learn them quickly, whether you intend to or not. You don't argue about appointment times. You don't complain loudly at the front desk. You don't ask to switch stylists without a reason Doris deems acceptable. You don't show up late and expect sympathy, and above all, you don't pretend Doris doesn't matter. Ignoring her is worse than offending her. Judgment here is quiet, almost gentle. Doris does not scold. She does not lecture. She simply remembers. If you cancel at the last minute, she notes it. If you arrive early and wait patiently, she notes that too. Over time, these notes accumulate into a reputation. A good reputation gets you small privileges, a better seat, a kinder tone, a chance to be squeezed in before a holiday. A poor reputation doesn't get you punished outright. It gets you delayed, forgotten, placed lower on the invisible list. Favors are never explicit. Doris never says, "I'm doing this for you." She simply does it, and you understand that you owe her something intangible in return. Gratitude, loyalty, silence. The salon runs on these small, unspoken exchanges. Doris is the broker. She ensures balance. Too many favors given freely would disrupt the order. Too much rigidity would drive people away. She calibrates constantly, adjusting the social temperature of the room. Grudges, on the other hand, are handled with elegance. Doris does not confront. She does not argue. She waits. A client who was rude 6 months ago may find herself waiting longer than expected today. A client who once stormed out might never again be offered a last-minute appointment. These are not punishments. They are consequences, delivered quietly, wrapped in politeness so thick they can't be challenged without seeming unreasonable. The salon's secrets flow through Doris whether she wants them to or not. She hears everything. Phone calls that reveal more than intended. Conversations at the desk that drift too far into confession. Stylists who mutter frustrations under their breath. Clients who lean in too close and whisper stories they wouldn't tell anyone else. Doris absorbs it all. She does not repeat what shouldn't be repeated. She also does not forget it. Her memory is legendary. She remembers birthdays, anniversaries, preferred rollers, allergies, sensitivities, grudges between clients that require careful seating arrangements. She remembers who likes to sit near the window and who hates the draft, who wants conversation and who wants silence. This knowledge gives her quiet authority. When Doris tells a stylist she'll need extra time, the stylist does not ask why. Social control in the salon is disguised as kindness. Doris smiles. She compliments shoes. She offers hard candy from a glass dish that looks older than the building itself. But beneath every interaction is structure. The salon is not democratic. It is ordered. And Doris is the one who keeps that order intact. When tension arises, Doris senses it immediately. A raised voice, a sharp laugh, a complaint delivered just a little too loudly. She intervenes without drawing attention, a step closer, a hand placed lightly on the desk, a comment that redirects the energy of the room. "Why don't you take a seat, dear? They'll be with you shortly." It sounds helpful. It is decisive. Clients trust Doris even when they don't realize they're doing so. They look to her for cues. If Doris seems calm, everything must be fine. If Doris raises an eyebrow, something is amiss. Her reactions set the emotional tone of the room. She is the first face you see and the last one you thank before leaving. That alone gives her power. As the day progresses, the desk becomes busier. Appointment cards are shuffled. Notes are added. Names are crossed out and rewritten. The phone rings again and again. Doris handles it all without appearing rushed. She never stands unless necessary. She doesn't need to. Everything comes to her. You begin to understand that the salon is not just chairs and dryers and mirrors. It is a system, a delicate balance of personalities, expectations, and routines. Doris is the central mechanism. Without her, the room would descend into confusion. Appointments would overlap. Grievances would fester. The unspoken rules would collapse under their own weight. Yet Doris never claims credit. She doesn't announce her importance. She simply does her job day after day with unwavering consistency. That consistency is what people rely on. That reliability is what keeps them coming back. Not just for the hair, but for the feeling that someone is in control, that the chaos of transformation is being carefully managed. When you finally move away from the desk and toward the chairs, you feel something settle, a sense that you are officially inside now, counted, seen, placed in order. Whatever happens next, Doris knows where you are and what you're supposed to be doing. That knowledge is oddly comforting. Behind you, Doris turns a page in the appointment book, smooths it with her palm, and looks up again, ready for the next arrival. The moment begins without ceremony, which somehow makes it feel more serious. There is no announcement, no warning bell, no final chance to reconsider. 1 second you are sitting in the chair as yourself, coat folded, handbag at your feet, shoes planted on sticky linoleum, and the next a stylist is standing behind you holding a folded sheet of plastic that represents a line you are about to cross. The cape does not look intimidating at first. It is pastel, cheerful even, a soft mint or pale pink meant to suggest cleanliness and calm, but its lightness is deceptive. Once it is shaken open, it expands, catching the air, snapping slightly as static crackles along its edges. The sound is sharp, unmistakable, and every regular in the room recognizes it instantly. This is the sound of transformation beginning. The stylist gives the cape a practiced flick, not for drama but for function, letting it billow before settling it around your shoulders. For a brief second it hovers, cool and impersonal, brushing your arms and neck. Then it drops. The fabric slides into place with a whisper that feels louder than it should. And before you can adjust or comment, the stylist reaches behind your neck. There is a pause, just long enough for your body to register what is coming. Then the snaps click shut. 1, 2, sometimes 3, depending on how secure they want you. The sound is final. The sound is final. A tiny mechanical punctuation mark that ends one version of you and begins another. In that instant, you stop being a person who walked in off the street and become the client. Your clothes vanish beneath the plastic shell. Your posture changes without you noticing. Your shoulders draw in slightly, your arms instinctively tuck closer to your sides. The cape dictates how you sit, how you move, how much space you're allowed to take up. It covers everything that might remind you of your life outside these walls. Job, errands, obligations, identity. All of it disappears under a layer of waterproof vinyl designed to survive chemicals, heat, and regret. The cape is not flattering. It is not meant to be. It is oversized, shapeless, and faintly humiliating. It transforms every body into roughly the same silhouette, a rounded, anonymous form with only a head protruding. The neckline presses lightly against your throat, just tight enough to make you aware of it. You swallow once, testing the space, then settle. There is no loosening it. Asking would only result in it being tightened further, under the guise of protection. Safety first, always. Around you, the same ritual is unfolding in quiet succession. Other women are being caped at their stations, each one undergoing the same small erasure. The room fills with the soft rustle of plastic as capes brush against chairs and one another. Static electricity pops and crackles, especially in winter, sending tiny shocks through fingertips and hairlines. Someone laughs softly as the fabric clings stubbornly to her sleeve. Another sighs as the cape slides cold against her neck. These reactions are brief and subdued. No one makes a fuss. This is all expected. Once the cape is secured, you are officially part of the system. Your personal comfort becomes secondary. Your movements are restricted. Reaching for your bag now requires planning. Crossing your legs is an awkward negotiation. Scratching an itch becomes a slow, exaggerated motion, if it's possible at all. The cape traps heat and air, creating a small private climate around your body. It smells faintly of setting lotion, shampoo, and the lingering traces of whoever wore it before you. Equality settles over the room. Under the cape's distinctions blur. There is no illusion of freshness here, only continuity. It no longer matters who arrived in what outfit or with which accessories. Expensive coats and modest dresses are rendered equally invisible. Jewelry disappears. Belts, buttons, patterns, all swallowed by pastel plastic. The only visible differences now are faces and shoes. And even those seem less important than they did moments ago. Everyone looks a little ridiculous. Everyone knows it. That shared absurdity softens the edges of self-consciousness. You catch the eye of a woman across the room, her cape the same shade as yours, her arms folded in the same resigned posture. There is a brief, wordless exchange, a nod, a half smile, a mutual acknowledgement that you are both in the same position now, subject to the same forces. No conversation is necessary. The bond is immediate and quiet. It exists only because the capes make it possible. The stylists move through the room with ease, snapping capes on and off with practiced efficiency. They are immune to the indignity of it. For them, the cape is a tool, not a transformation. They do not notice the way it changes people, how it strips away small defenses. Or perhaps they notice and simply accept it as part of the process. The cape protects clothing, yes, but it also prepares the mind. It signals surrender. It tells you, gently but firmly, that you are no longer in charge. Conversation shifts once the capes are on. Voices drop, topics change. People speak more freely, perhaps because there is less to perform. When everyone looks equally foolish, there is nothing left to protect. Complaints are shared more honestly. Gossip flows more easily. Confessions slip out between comments about hair texture and weather. The cape creates a strange safety, a temporary anonymity that encourages vulnerability. The plastic crinkles whenever you move, a constant reminder of your state. It announces every adjustment, every attempt to get comfortable. The sound becomes part of the salon's rhythm, layered beneath the hum of dryers and the murmur of voices. Over time, you stop noticing it consciously. Your body adapts. The restriction becomes normal. You forget what it felt like to sit without it. This is the surrender phase. It does not arrive all at once. It creeps in slowly, disguised as acceptance. You stop checking the clock. You stop wondering how long this will take. You stop thinking about what you need to do later. The cape helps with this. It anchors you physically, holds you in place while your attention drifts inward. There is nowhere else to go, nothing else to focus on. You are here now, fully. Occasionally, someone attempts to reclaim a bit of autonomy. A hand slips out from beneath the cape to gesture emphatically during a story. The fabric crackles in protest. A shoulder lifts, trying to adjust the neckline. The stylist notices immediately and smooths it back into place with a gentle but firm touch. These small rebellions never last. The cape always wins. From the front desk, Doris watches the room, her gaze passing over the rows of caped figures with measured approval. Order has been achieved. Everyone is seated, contained, ready. The salon has shifted from a collection of individuals into a coordinated scene. The ritual is complete. As you sit there, wrapped in pastel plastic, you realize how little is expected of you now. You do not need to decide. You do not need to manage. You do not need to be anything other than present. The cape has taken on the burden of identity for you. It has flattened differences, quieted anxieties, and created a shared experience that feels oddly comforting. There is humor in this moment, though it is gentle and understated. Someone jokes about feeling like a packaged loaf of bread. Another remarks that if nothing else, at least her shoes still match. Laughter ripples through the room, soft and brief, then settles again. No one lingers on it. Humor here is not meant to disrupt the process, only to ease it. The longer you sit, the more natural it feels. The cape stops being an imposition and becomes part of you, an extension of the chair, the mirror, the room itself. You forget that you once walked in unencumbered. You forget that this is temporary. All that matters is that you are here, waiting, along with everyone else. This is how the salon prepares you for what comes next. Not with instructions or explanations, but with fabric and snaps and shared silence. The cape does the work quietly, efficiently, transforming a room full of individuals into a group of willing participants. By the time the stylist returns to your side and places a hand lightly on your shoulder, you are ready. Not eager, not afraid, simply ready to let whatever happens, happen. The gossip begins long before anyone admits it has started. It seeps into the room quietly, carried on half sentences and unfinished thoughts, slipping between the hum of the dryers and the rustle of capes. At first it sounds like nothing at all. A comment about the weather, a sigh about traffic, a harmless observation about how busy the salon feels today. But beneath those words, something else is moving, something older and more essential. In a 1950s beauty salon, gossip is not idle chatter. It is currency. It is entertainment. It is how information travels, how relationships are measured, and how the community understands itself. Once the hood dryers come down, conversation changes shape. The domes seal women into their chairs, separating them physically while somehow binding them together socially. Voices must be raised to be heard, and that changes what gets said. Statements become bolder, stories become simpler, more dramatic, easier to shout across the room. The dryer noise provides cover. Anything spoken can plausibly be denied later. I couldn't hear myself think under that thing, someone will say, and everyone will nod, understanding the unspoken agreement. Words spoken under the dryer belong to the room, not to the speaker. Gossip here is never framed as gossip. It is framed as concern, curiosity, or helpful information. I probably shouldn't say anything, but is a common opening, followed immediately by something everyone is very interested in hearing. Stories are passed gently, with disclaimers attached, as if responsibility for their existence lies elsewhere. No one claims ownership. Information simply appears, fully formed, ready to be discussed, reshaped, and stored away for later use. The stylists are at the center of this exchange, whether they want to be or not. They move from chair to chair, hands busy, ears open, absorbing far more than they contribute. Clients talk while their hair is being washed, set, curled, and teased, voices low and confessional, as if the stylist's hands on their head unlock something private. It is easier to speak when you are not being looked at directly, when your face is tilted back or hidden beneath a dryer dome. The stylists listen without reacting, offering neutral murmurs and well-timed nods. They learn everything: who is struggling, who is feuding, who is pretending things are fine when they clearly are not. Regulars know this and speak accordingly. They understand that stylists are not just service providers, but informal therapists, witnesses to lives unfolding in fragments. A regular might arrive with a story ready, rehearsed during the drive over. She knows when to deliver it, usually once the cape is secured and the dryer is on. She knows which stylist to tell and which details to emphasize. The story will be received, processed, and quietly filed away, to be referenced later if needed. There is comfort in that continuity, in knowing that someone remembers your past and understands your present without needing everything explained again. Newcomers behave differently. They listen more than they speak. Their eyes move quickly, tracking who talks and who is listened to. They laugh a second later than everyone else, careful not to reveal too much or too little. They test small comments, harmless observations, waiting to see how the room responds. Gossip has rules, and newcomers learn them by watching. Speak too boldly too soon, and you risk being remembered for the wrong reason. Say nothing at all, and you may remain invisible longer than you'd like. There is a hierarchy to salon gossip, just as there is to everything else. Certain regulars are known sources, their information trusted and sought after. When they clear their throats and lower their voices, the room subtly leans in. Others are treated with caution, their stories received politely but filtered carefully before being accepted as fact. No one calls this out directly. It is understood. Over time, everyone knows whose words carry weight and whose require verification. The rules of salon gossip are strict, though rarely spoken aloud. Some topics are fair game. Relationships, social events, minor scandals, personal habits that have become public knowledge. Other topics are handled delicately or avoided altogether. Certain names are never mentioned unless the dryers are at full volume. Some stories are only told while standing near the sinks, water running to mask the sound. The phrase, "this stays here," is understood to mean exactly the opposite, but it establishes a shared pretense that must be maintained. There is comfort in this system. Shared scandal binds people together. Knowing that others are flawed, struggling, or slightly ridiculous makes one's own imperfections easier to bear. Laughter comes easily when the story belongs to someone else, but there is also empathy woven through it. Many stories end not with judgment, but with reassurance. She'll be all right. That happened to my cousin once. At least it wasn't worse. The gossip is rarely cruel for its own sake. It is communal processing, a way of making sense of the world through other people's experiences. Under the dryers, time stretches. Stories grow longer, more detailed. The same anecdote might be told 3 times in slightly different forms, each version adjusted for the audience listening at that moment. No one complains. Repetition is expected. It gives people time to react, to absorb, to contribute their own variations. By the third telling, the story belongs to everyone, no longer tied to a single voice. The dryers create strange pockets of intimacy. 2 women sitting side by side, each sealed under her own dome, might exchange glances and exaggerated expressions, communicating silently while someone else speaks. Eyebrows rise, eyes widen, mouths form silent words. These reactions are shared, acknowledged, and then folded back into the collective experience. Even without speaking, participation is constant. Stylists navigate this landscape carefully. They never repeat stories verbatim. They paraphrase, generalize, soften edges when necessary. They protect confidences while still allowing information to flow. This balancing act is part of their skill, just as important as cutting or setting hair. A stylist who cannot manage gossip will not last long. Clients need to feel heard, but also safe. Trust is built not on silence, but on discretion. As the day wears on, the salon accumulates stories the way the floor accumulates bobby pins. Some will be swept away by closing time, forgotten entirely. Others will remain, tucked into memory, ready to resurface weeks or months later. A comment made today might explain a tension tomorrow. A story overheard casually might clarify a strange interaction later on. Gossip here is not random. It is a living archive. For all its reputation, salon gossip is not about tearing people down. It is about connection. It fills the long hours of waiting. It gives shape to time. It allows people to feel included, informed, and relevant. In a world where many women's lives revolve around domestic routines and social expectations, the salon becomes a place where narratives are exchanged freely, where voices are heard without interruption, where personal experiences are validated simply by being shared. As you sit under the dryer, listening, half dazed by heat and noise, you realize how much of this feels comforting rather than invasive. The stories distract from discomfort. They make the waiting bearable. They remind you that you are not alone, that others are navigating similar challenges, making similar mistakes, finding humor in similar places. The salon becomes more than a room full of chairs and machines. It becomes a network, held together by words, laughter, and the quiet agreement that what happens here matters. By the time the dryer is lifted and the noise recedes, you carry these stories with you, whether you mean to or not. They linger, blending with your own thoughts, shaping how you see the people around you. This is the social heartbeat of the salon, steady and persistent, pulsing beneath every snip, every spray, every sigh. Long after the hair settles, the gossip remains, binding the community together one story at a time. The magazines appear without discussion, as if summoned by the simple act of sitting still long enough. A stylist reaches beneath the counter or gestures toward a low side table, and suddenly a stack is placed in your lap with a soft, dusty thump. Life, Ladies' Home Journal, Reader's Digest, sometimes Good Housekeeping, sometimes A Better Homes and Gardens, whose cover has faded into a color that no longer exists in nature. None of them are current. None of them pretend to be. The newest issue is likely several months old, and the oldest might predate a minor election or two. This is not a mistake. It is tradition. The magazines are slightly warm, having absorbed heat from dryers, laps, and hands over the course of many days. Their covers are glossy but dulled by fingerprints and setting powder. Corners curl upwards stubbornly, refusing to lie flat. Spines are cracked in the middle, pages loose and threatening to detach completely if handled too aggressively. When you flip one open, there is often a faint smell of perfume and hairspray trapped between the pages, a scent that feels inseparable from the content itself. You do not choose a magazine so much as accept one. Selection implies intention, and intention is unnecessary here. Whatever lands on your lap is what you read, or rather what you pretend to read. Because in a 1950s beauty salon, magazines are less about information and more about posture. They give your hands something to do. They give your eyes a place to land. They allow you to appear occupied while remaining fully available to everything happening around you. Life magazine is heavy, its pages thick, its photographs dramatic and earnest. It promises the wider world, global events captured in black and white, faces frozen mid-moment. You glance at a headline about politics or industry, but the words barely register. The images feel distant, abstract, like news from a planet you are not currently on. Here, under the dryer or wrapped in a cape, the outside world feels theoretical. You flip a few pages, nodding occasionally as if absorbing something important, then let the magazine rest open without reading further. Ladies' Home Journal is brighter, more personal. Its pages are filled with smiling women, immaculate kitchens, children who never seem tired or sticky. Advice columns promise solutions to problems you didn't know you were supposed to have. How to please your husband, how to host the perfect luncheon, how to maintain your figure, your complexion, your composure. The tone is confident, almost cheerful, and deeply out of sync with the reality of the salon around you, where women sit immobilized, hair half done, expressions unguarded. You skim a headline, perhaps an article about redecorating a living room, and wonder vaguely who has the time or energy to care this much about throw pillows. Reader's Digest is smaller, easier to hold. Its condensed articles offering moral lessons, humor, and reassurance in tidy packages. Jokes that have already been read and reread, inspirational stories whose endings are visible from the first paragraph. You smile politely at a punchline you've seen before, careful not to laugh too loudly. The magazine feels safe, familiar, a reminder that some things are meant to be consumed slowly, repeatedly, without surprise. Advertisements fill the margins and pages, and they are impossible to ignore. Cigarette ads appear everywhere, promising relaxation, sophistication, and approval. Doctors recommend them. Movie stars endorse them. Everyone in the pictures looks calm, happy, impossibly well rested. You glance up from the page to see actual women in the salon, many of whom are smoking at that very moment, exhaling slowly, ashtrays balanced precariously on armrests or counters. The ads feel less like persuasion and more like confirmation of something already accepted. Beauty myths abound. Creams that promise to erase wrinkles overnight, lotions that guarantee eternal youth, hair products that claim to add shine, volume, bounce, and confidence all at once. The language is breathless, absolute. There is no room for doubt. And yet sitting here, surrounded by women who return week after week, for maintenance, touch-ups, corrections, the promises feel hollow. You read them anyway, not because you believe them, but because they are part of the ritual. The magazines are not meant to be read deeply. Doing so would mark you as someone missing the point. The real content is elsewhere. The magazines serve as shields, allowing you to listen without appearing to listen. You angle the pages just enough to obscure your face, while keeping your ears unobstructed. This is the etiquette of salon waiting. You do not stare openly. You do not lean in obviously. You listen with your whole body while pretending to focus on a recipe for tuna casserole or an article about managing household stress. Eavesdropping here is an art form, practiced with subtlety and restraint. You learn quickly how to balance attention. Too much interest invites scrutiny. Too little makes you seem aloof. The ideal posture is relaxed, engaged just enough to respond if addressed directly, but not so engaged that anyone feels watched. A slight tilt of the head, a pause before turning a page. These small gestures signal participation without intrusion. The magazines help maintain this delicate balance. They give you an excuse to look down when a conversation turns too personal, and an excuse to glance up when a familiar name is mentioned. They absorb the awkward silences between stories. When no one is speaking loudly enough to follow, you flip a page. When the gossip picks up, the magazine remains open but unread, frozen mid-article as your attention shifts. Over time, you realize that the content of the magazines barely matters. It doesn't matter that the advice is outdated, that the fashions are already changing, that the headlines feel irrelevant. In fact, that irrelevance is part of their comfort. The magazines are predictable. They will not surprise you. They will not demand anything of you. They will be here next week and the week after, and likely long after that, cycling through the same stack, gathering more fingerprints, more creases. There is reassurance in knowing exactly what you're getting. A recipe that calls for canned soup. A column that gently scolds without offending. An article that promises happiness through organization. These themes repeat endlessly, and repetition breeds familiarity. Familiarity breeds calm. In a space where so much is uncertain, where hair outcomes are never guaranteed, the magazines offer a steady backdrop. Occasionally someone comments on what you're reading. "Oh, I saw that article," they might say, even if neither of you actually read it. You nod, smile, offer a vague response. The specifics don't matter. The acknowledgement is enough. It affirms that you are part of the shared experience, participating in the same rituals. Even if the magazine is just a prop, pages stick together sometimes, requiring a gentle tug to separate them. Loose inserts fall out unexpectedly. A coupon flutters to the floor, ignored. No one rushes to pick it up. There is no urgency here. Everything moves at the salon's pace, which is slow by design. Even reading, an activity usually associated with productivity, becomes leisurely, optional, secondary. As the hours pass, the magazines rotate. Someone finishes pretending to read one and places it back on the table, reaching for another without looking. You might trade with a neighbor, sliding one across with a small nod. The exchange is silent, efficient. Everyone understands the system. The magazines belong to the room, not to any individual. What's striking is how little the content has changed over time, and how little that seems to matter. The advice may be outdated, the images old-fashioned, but the act of holding a magazine, flipping pages, waiting, remains constant. It connects generations of women who have sat in similar chairs, under similar dryers, passing time in the same way. The magazines are artifacts of continuity. Eventually you stop noticing which magazine you're holding. It becomes an extension of the cape, another layer between you and the outside world. You rest your hands on it. You let it anchor you. When your stylist calls your name, you close it without marking your place, knowing it doesn't matter. Someone else will pick it up, open it to a different page, and continue the cycle. In this way, old magazines turn waiting into ritual. They transform idle time into something structured, familiar, almost comforting. They remind you that nothing here is meant to be rushed, that repetition is not boredom but stability. As you sit there, surrounded by outdated advice and timeless habits, you feel oddly at ease. The world can wait. The magazine will still be here, and for now that is enough. The consultation begins with a sentence that has been spoken so many times it barely feels like language anymore. You say it automatically, almost reflexively, the way one says fine when asked how they are. "I just want something natural." The words leave your mouth lightly, without emphasis, because you believe them to be reasonable, sensible, safe. In your mind, they mean minimal change, a gentle improvement, the same version of yourself but slightly more polished, as if you've slept well and drunk more water. You imagine softness, ease, hair that behaves without announcing itself. What you do not realize, at least not yet, is that this sentence means something very different on the other side of the chair. The stylist nods immediately. This nod is practiced, reassuring, and deeply ambiguous. It does not confirm understanding so much as it acknowledges that a ritual has begun. "Of course," she says, already reaching for her comb. The tone suggests that she hears this request all day, every day, and that she has translated it into a far more specific set of instructions. You do not know what those instructions are. You will not be invited to see them. The consultation is not a discussion so much as a performance, and both of you have roles to play. The stylist circles you slowly, studying your head as if it were a landscape requiring careful mapping. She lifts a section of hair between her fingers, lets it fall, then lifts another. She tilts your chin gently to one side, then the other, guiding your face as though positioning a sculpture. You follow her movements instinctively, eager to cooperate, hoping cooperation will be rewarded with restraint. There is an intimacy to this moment that feels oddly formal. You are being examined, evaluated, interpreted. The mirror reflects your face back at you, but already it feels slightly less like yours. Questions follow, delivered casually but with intent. Do you usually wear it off your face? How much time do you spend on it in the morning? Have you ever had a perm? Each question is a test, though you don't know what the right answers are. You respond honestly, or at least you think you do. You say you don't want too much volume. You say you like it simple. You say you want it easy to manage. With every answer, the stylist nods again, the same nod, absorbing your words and translating them into something more actionable, something that sounds suspiciously like ambition. This is the coded language of the salon. Clients speak in hopes and generalities. Stylists hear shapes, techniques, and outcomes. When you say natural, the stylist hears structure. When you say just a trim, she hears opportunity. When you say nothing drastic, she hears freedom with limits. Neither of you is wrong. You are simply speaking different dialects of the same language. The stylist reaches for a magazine, flipping it open with a flick of her wrist. "Something like this?" she asks, turning the pages toward you. The image she indicates is of a woman whose hair looks effortless in a way that can only be achieved through great effort. The model's face is perfect, her smile relaxed, her hair arranged by unseen hands and held in place by unseen forces. You nod because nodding feels correct. You know this image is unrealistic. You know your hair does not behave like that. But the photo represents a feeling more than a style. And that feeling is what you are trying to communicate. You are asked to choose another photo. You flip pages carefully, aware that this choice carries weight. The magazines are filled with women who do not look like you, whose hairlines, textures, and proportions are different in ways you cannot articulate. Still, you find one that seems close enough. You point to it tentatively. The stylist glances at it for less than a second before nodding again. The photo is not a blueprint. It is a suggestion, a starting point, a reference for mood rather than outcome. Throughout this exchange, the power imbalance remains gentle but unmistakable. You are seated. The stylist stands. She holds the tools. She has the knowledge. You have the hope. You are aware, dimly, that once you agree to proceed, control will slip further from your grasp. But the consultation offers the comforting illusion that you are still involved, that your preferences are being honored, that you are collaborating rather than surrendering. Language becomes increasingly vague as the conversation continues. A little lift, some movement, will brighten it up. These phrases sound harmless, even desirable. You nod again, though you are not entirely sure what they mean in practice. Asking for clarification feels risky. You don't want to seem difficult. You don't want to undermine the stylist's confidence. You want to be agreeable, trusting, low maintenance. These traits, you sense, are valued here. The stylist compliments your hair in ways that feel reassuring and ominous all at once. You have great texture. Your hair holds well. This will take nicely. Each compliment suggests potential, but also work. Potential is dangerous. Potential invites experimentation. You smile politely, unsure whether to feel flattered or afraid. Around you, other consultations are unfolding in parallel. You catch fragments of dialogue drifting across the room. Just a little off the ends. "I don't want bangs. Last time it was too short." Each client sounds hopeful, cautious, resigned. Each stylist responds with the same nod, the same calm assurance. There is a rhythm to it, a choreography of misunderstanding that everyone accepts as normal. Eventually, the consultation reaches its conclusion without a clear endpoint. There is no formal agreement, no summary of what will happen next. The stylist steps away briefly, returning with tools, bottles, or rollers that appear larger and more numerous than you expected. This is the moment when the illusion of choice begins to thin. You realize that whatever you asked for is now being interpreted through the stylist's expertise, preferences, and instincts. Your role shifts from decision maker to participant. You feel a flicker of doubt. Should you have been more specific? Should you have said less? Should you have said nothing at all? These thoughts pass quickly, smoothed over by the stylist's confidence and the momentum of the room. Everything is already in motion. Stopping now would be awkward, unnecessary, possibly rude. The consultation, for all its apparent openness, is not designed to produce certainty. It is designed to produce consent. By the time it ends, you have agreed to trust. You have nodded enough times that backing out feels impossible. You have handed over the authority to interpret your words and translate them into action. The comedy of it lies in how normal this feels. How many times this exchange has played out with the same phrases, the same misunderstandings, the same hopeful smiles. When the stylist returns to your side and adjusts the cape, the conversation shifts away from your desires and toward logistics, timing, process, comfort. The creative decisions have already been made. Whether they align perfectly with what you imagined is no longer the point. The consultation has done its job. It has made you feel heard without guaranteeing precision. It has given you the comfort of participation without the burden of control. As you sit back in the chair, watching the stylist prepare, you realize that just something natural was never a request meant to be fulfilled literally. It was a signal, a gesture, a way of saying, I trust you. And in the 1950s beauty salon, trust is the most powerful ingredient of all. The shelf is the first thing you notice once the consultation ends and the real work begins. It runs along the wall at eye level, sagging slightly in the middle, crowded with bottles that do not explain themselves. Some are glass, thick and cloudy, their labels long since faded into illegibility. Others are plastic, soft from age, squeezed and reshaped by decades of use. A few have handwritten tags tied on with string, ink smudged by spills and fingerprints. Many have no labels at all. They sit there quietly, an unassuming lineup of mysteries, each one holding a promise that no one bothers to define too clearly. This is the salon's true engine room, the place where beauty stops being an idea and becomes chemistry. In a modern world, this would be unsettling. Bottles without warnings, liquids without ingredient lists, potions measured by eye instead of instruction. But here, in the 1950s beauty salon, this is simply how things are done. The absence of information is not a flaw. It is part of the system. Knowledge exists, but it belongs to the stylist, not to you. Your role is not to understand. Your role is to trust. The stylist reaches for a bottle near the back of the shelf, one you didn't notice at first because it blends in with the others. Its glass tinted a pale medicinal green. She shakes it once, twice, listening to the slosh inside like a bartender judging the weight of a drink. The sound is thick and syrupy. She unscrews the cap, and the smell reaches you before the liquid ever does. It is sharp, floral, and unmistakably chemical, a scent that feels like it enters your nose and stays there, settling in behind your eyes. You blink reflexively, not in pain exactly, but in recognition. This smell means something is happening. The salon has a signature atmosphere, and much of it comes from these bottles. The air is layered. There is the sweetness of perfume, the powdery residue of setting lotion, the metallic tang of hairspray. Underneath it all is something harder to describe, a base note of solvents and optimism, of substances designed to force hair into obedience. The smell clings to clothing, to skin, to memory. It follows you home long after the appointment ends, announcing to anyone within range that you have been somewhere important. As the stylist pours a small amount of liquid into a shallow dish, you notice how casually she does it. No gloves, no mask, no hesitation. She tilts the bottle with the confidence of someone who has performed this motion thousands of times and survived everyone. The liquid is viscous, catching the light as it pools, neither fully clear nor fully opaque. It looks alive in a way that makes you uneasy, as though it might move on its own if left unattended. Every salon has its own mythology about these mixtures. Some are commercial products, ordered in bulk and delivered in unmarked crates. Others are homemade, adjusted and readjusted over the years until they belong more to the salon than to any manufacturer. There are recipes passed down between stylists like family secrets. Add a little more if the hair is stubborn, less if it's fine. Never use that one on a humid day. Always mix these two together, but only on Tuesdays, and never during a full moon. Even if no one admits that last rule out loud, superstition lives comfortably alongside science here. A certain tonic is known to work better if you shake it exactly 3 times. Another should never be poured directly from the bottle, only transferred with a spoon that lives in a chipped ceramic mug beneath the sink. Someone swears that letting a mixture sit for a minute before applying it makes all the difference. No one asks why. Results are enough. You watch as the stylist stirs the liquid with a plastic brush, the bristles coated in pale pink residue from earlier use. The sound is soft, rhythmic, oddly soothing. It is the sound of preparation, of something being made specifically for you, even if you don't know what it is. The stylist hums quietly as she works, a tune you don't recognize, her attention split between the mixture and the activity unfolding around her. She glances up occasionally, checking on other clients, exchanging a look with another stylist across the room. These looks carry information you will never hear spoken aloud. When the mixture is ready, she brings it closer, dipping her fingers in briefly, testing the texture. This gesture is meant to reassure you, though it does the opposite. If it is safe enough for her fingers, you suppose it must be safe enough for your scalp, or at least safe enough by the standards of the time. Safety here is not an absolute. It is a range, a willingness to accept minor discomfort in exchange for beauty. The first touch is tentative. The liquid is cool against your skin, spreading quickly, seeping into your hair and down toward the roots. The smell intensifies immediately, blooming upward like a cloud. Your eyes water slightly. The stylist doesn't comment. This reaction is expected. If anything, a lack of reaction would be suspicious. A little sting means it's working. This phrase is not spoken, but it is understood. As more of the mixture is applied, sensations stack on top of each other. Cool becomes warm. Tingle becomes itch. There is a faint prickle at the base of your skull. Not painful, but insistent. You resist the urge to move. Movement is discouraged during this phase. Stillness is cooperation. Cooperation leads to better results. Around you, other chemical rituals are unfolding. Someone near the sinks is receiving a blue rinse, the liquid dripping toward the drain in thin streams that stain the porcelain briefly before disappearing. Another stylist shakes a bottle vigorously, the cap rattling like a warning. The air grows thicker, heavier, as if each treatment adds another invisible layer. Breathing becomes a conscious act. Slow, shallow, polite. There is no talk of ingredients. No one explains what is being applied or why. Questions are unnecessary and slightly impolite. To ask would be to suggest doubt, and doubt disrupts the delicate balance of the room. Instead, reassurance comes in the form of casual statements. This will make it shine. This helps it hold. You'll love how this feels once it sets. These promises are vague but comforting. They focus on outcomes, not processes. The stylists move through this chemical landscape with ease, unbothered by the smells or the sting. They are alchemists in sensible shoes, turning ordinary hair into something elevated through trial, error, and repetition. They know which mixtures behave, which ones must be watched carefully, which ones are best saved for special occasions. Their knowledge is practical, not theoretical. It comes from experience, not textbooks. There is optimism in the way these substances are handled, a belief that progress is always possible, that new formulas will solve old problems, that stronger is better, faster is better, more is better. This optimism is not reckless exactly, but it is confident. The future is chemical, and the salon is where that future is tested first. You feel oddly honored to be part of this experiment, chosen even to receive a mixture tailored to your hair, adjusted by intuition and habit. There is a sense of inclusion in surrendering to the process. You are not just a customer. You are a participant in a small ongoing history of trial and transformation. As the stylist finishes applying the tonic, she steps back to assess her work. She nods once, satisfied. The mixture glistens faintly under the lights, coating your hair in a sheen that feels both heavy and purposeful. She wipes her hands on a towel already stiff with residue from earlier appointments. The towel has seen things. It will see more. The waiting begins again, this time with the chemical presence firmly established. You sit very still, aware of every sensation, every smell. Time stretches. Minutes feel longer when you are conscious of your own scalp. You listen to the room around you, the clink of bottles being set down, the low murmur of voices, the distant roar of a dryer warming up. This is the quiet before the next stage, the moment when optimism outweighs caution, when faith fills the gaps left by information. In this salon, chemistry is not something to fear. It is something to respect, something to endure, something to believe in. Bottles do not need explanations. Results speak for themselves eventually. And as you sit there, hair saturated with mystery, you understand that this faith in the unseen is part of what keeps the whole ritual alive. Optimism over safety, trust over knowledge, beauty, achieved not by certainty but by conviction. The journey to the shampoo bowl begins with a small but unmistakable shift in tone, as if the room itself knows you are about to be tested. Your stylist places a gentle hand at the base of your neck and guides you out of the chair, steering you toward the row of porcelain sinks lining the back wall. These basins are heavy, immovable things, bolted into place decades ago with no concern for ergonomics or mercy. They are glossy white, chipped at the edges, faintly stained by years of dye, toner, and whatever else has passed through them. From a distance they look clean, even inviting. Up close they radiate authority. You approach them with the quiet respect one gives to an altar or a judge. You are positioned carefully, though carefully here is a relative term. The chair is adjusted, the cape is rearranged, and then comes the moment when your head is tipped backward, farther than feels natural, until the base of your skull meets the hard curve of porcelain. There is no padding, no cushion, no ergonomic compromise. The sink does not adapt to you. You adapt to it. Your neck stretches into an angle it did not know it could achieve, and for a brief, disorienting second you wonder if this is how you will remain, suspended between discomfort and obedience. The cold hits immediately. Porcelain holds temperature with a kind of stubborn pride, and even before the water runs, the chill seeps into your skin. The edge of the bowl presses against your neck, firm and unyielding, a reminder that comfort was never the primary concern here. You swallow reflexively, adjusting your shoulders, searching for a position that distributes the pressure evenly. You do not find one. Everyone goes through this. It is part of the process. When the water turns on, there is no gradual introduction. It arrives decisively, and it is always wrong. Either it is so cold it steals your breath, or so hot it feels as though it might peel layers away. Sometimes it manages to be both within seconds, cycling unpredictably as the pipes argue with themselves. You flinch, then force yourself to relax, because tension only makes the experience worse. The stylist murmurs something soothing, though it is mostly lost beneath the rush of water and the echoing acoustics of the sink area. Water finds its way everywhere. It trickles into your ears, runs along your hairline, escapes down the back of your neck in thin icy streams that settle between your shoulders. The cape, meant to protect you, becomes a funnel for discomfort, channeling stray droplets into places you would rather they not go. You consider speaking up, asking for an adjustment, but decide against it. This too is expected. The bowl is not cruel, it is simply indifferent. Then the shampoo is applied and the sensation shifts. The stylist's fingers move through your hair with practiced efficiency, distributing the product evenly before working it into a lather. The shampoo smells clean in an aggressive way, floral and medicinal at once, designed to announce its presence. As it foams, the warmth of the stylist's hands contrasts sharply with the cold of the porcelain, creating a strange duality of comfort and discomfort. Your scalp tingles, partly from the product, partly from the circulation returning to places strained by the angle of your neck. The massage begins almost absent-mindedly, as though the stylist has done this so many times she no longer needs to think about it. Fingers press, circle, and knead, firm enough to feel purposeful, gentle enough to suggest care. This is the reward phase, the moment everyone talks about when they describe why they come back. It feels good in a way that is deeply physical, uncomplicated by expectation. Your thoughts loosen, your jaw unclenches. For a brief moment you forget about the sink, the water, the vulnerability of your position, but the pleasure is never uninterrupted. A finger catches on a tangle. Pressure increases suddenly in one spot, sending a sharp reminder through your scalp. The water temperature shifts again without warning, shocking you back into awareness. The massage is both indulgence and penance, a reminder that comfort must be earned and that it never arrives without cost. You accept this quietly because resistance would only prolong the discomfort. Around you, others are undergoing the same trial. You hear the low murmur of conversation punctuated by the splash of water and the squeak of faucets being adjusted. Occasionally, someone lets out a small gasp when the temperature swings too far in one direction. No one comments. Shared suffering does not require commentary. There is an unspoken understanding among those reclined at the sinks, heads tipped back in identical surrender. You are all here together, enduring the same indignities in pursuit of the same promise. The rinse begins, and with it comes another test. The water streams directly onto your scalp now, carrying away shampoo, foam, and the lingering residue of earlier treatments. It rushes with surprising force, flattening your hair against your head, exposing the sensitive skin beneath. You are acutely aware of every droplet, every shift in pressure. Your neck protests, muscles tightening in places you didn't know could ache. You focus on breathing steadily, counting silently, anything to distract from the strain. As the water continues to flow, something else happens. The heaviness from earlier treatments begins to lift. The layers of product, oil, and residue are washed away, leaving your hair lighter, your scalp refreshed in a way that borders on raw. There is a vulnerability to this stage, a sense of being stripped down to basics. You feel exposed but also renewed. Cleanliness here is not gentle. It is thorough, almost aggressive, and strangely satisfying. The stylist checks the rinse with her fingers, lifting sections of hair to ensure nothing remains. She adjusts the faucet one last time, then turns it off with a decisive motion. The sudden quiet is almost startling. Without the sound of running water, the room feels hushed, intimate. Your ears ring faintly, accustomed to the noise. The stylist wraps a towel around your head, the fabric rough but warm, and presses lightly, absorbing excess water. The towel smells faintly of detergent and something older, a scent that speaks of countless clients before you. When you are lifted from the sink, the movement is careful but brisk. Blood rushes back into your head, and for a moment the room tilts slightly. You blink, steadying yourself as the chair catches your weight. The towel remains wrapped tightly, cocooning your head, holding in warmth. Your neck aches dully now, but the discomfort feels earned, almost honorable. You have passed through something, endured something. As you settle back into the chair, you notice a subtle shift in how you feel. Lighter, calmer. There is a clarity that comes with having endured discomfort and emerged intact. The earlier tension has softened, replaced by a quiet satisfaction. You are not just cleaner, you are reset. Whatever anxieties you carried into the salon have been diluted, washed down the drain along with the foam and residue. You glance around and catch the eye of another client returning from the sinks. There is a brief exchange, a look that acknowledges the shared experience without naming it. You both know what the other has just been through. This unspoken bond is fleeting but real. It is built not on conversation, but on endurance. The shampoo bowl is not merely a functional station in the salon. It is a rite, a moment of enforced stillness, of physical vulnerability, of surrender. It humbles everyone equally, regardless of age, status, or confidence. In that porcelain cradle, you are reminded that beauty is not bestowed gently. It is negotiated, endured, and earned through moments like this. As the towel is removed and your hair is gently combed through, you feel a sense of readiness settle in. Whatever comes next, rollers, dryers, sprays, or further chemical adventures, you face it cleansed, both literally and figuratively. The discomfort lingers in your neck, the faint scent of shampoo clings to your hair, but beneath it all is a quiet resilience. You have paid your penance. You have been rinsed clean, and in the peculiar logic of the salon, that means you are ready to be transformed. The perm begins not with drama, but with preparation, and that is what makes it unsettling. There is no warning bell, no announcement that something irreversible is about to happen. The stylist simply reaches for a tray of rollers and brings it closer, setting it down with a soft clatter that somehow sounds louder than it should. The rollers are smaller than you expected, firmer too, their plastic edges smooth from years of use. You look at them and feel a quiet recalibration of expectations. Whatever natural once meant has officially left the building. Your hair is sectioned with brisk efficiency. The stylist's hands move quickly now, less conversational, more deliberate. Each part is clean and precise, drawn with the thin tail of a comb that glides across your scalp and leaves faint, cool lines in its wake. The sections are clipped up, lifted away, reduced to manageable territories. You feel yourself being organized, divided, prepared. This is not styling anymore. This is setup. The first roller goes in at the crown. Your hair is pulled forward, wrapped tightly and fastened close to the scalp. The tension is immediate and unmistakable. It's not pain exactly, but it is pressure, a firm insistence that your hair and scalp are no longer operating on their own terms. The stylist adjusts the angle, tugging slightly to ensure uniformity, then secures the roller with a snap that sounds final. You swallow instinctively, as if bracing for a climb. More rollers follow, each one adding to the sensation. The hair is stretched, wound, clipped, repeated. The pulling becomes rhythmic, predictable, almost hypnotic. You learn quickly that flinching does nothing. Resistance only sharpens the awareness. Stillness is the only strategy. Your scalp tightens incrementally, like fabric being drawn taut. Somewhere behind your eyes a dull ache begins to form, but you don't mention it. No one does. Around you, other women are undergoing the same process. You hear the soft click of rollers being secured, the occasional whispered reassurance from a stylist. This is part of the courage required. Almost done. You're doing great. These phrases are offered generously, even when they aren't strictly true. Courage here is collective. Everyone knows what this feels like. Everyone remembers their first perm, and the memory carries weight. When the last roller is in place, your head feels heavier, denser, as if gravity itself has shifted. You try not to move. The rollers are packed close together, each one claiming a small territory of your scalp. There is no comfortable position now. Comfort is no longer the goal. The stylist steps back, surveying her work with a critical eye. She makes small adjustments, tightening one roller, loosening another by a fraction. Each adjustment sends a ripple of sensation across your head. You breathe through it, slow and controlled. Then comes the bottle. You recognize it before it's even opened. The perm solution has a presence that announces itself early, a sharp, unmistakable odor that cuts through the layers of hairspray and perfume like a blade. It smells industrial, chemical, faintly metallic. It is not floral, it is not gentle. It smells like change, like risk, like something that should probably be handled with caution, but rarely is. The cap twists off and the scent blooms instantly. It fills the air, creeping into your nose, settling at the back of your throat. Your eyes sting slightly. Whether from the fumes or from anticipation, it's hard to say. Chill. The stylist dips a sponge into the solution and lifts it toward your head. This is the moment when fear becomes real, when the abstract idea of a perm turns into a physical threat hovering inches from your scalp. The first application is cold. The liquid seeps into the rolled hair, saturating it quickly, efficiently. You feel it spread heavier than water, clinging to the hair and creeping closer to the skin beneath. The smell intensifies. Someone nearby coughs quietly. No one comments. Commentary would only heighten the tension, and tension is already doing enough work. As more solution is applied, sensations multiply. There is a tingling at first, mild but noticeable. then a warmth that borders on heat, not burning exactly, but close enough to make you wonder where the line is. You resist the urge to scratch, to adjust, to do anything at all. The rules are clear even if no one says them aloud. Do not touch, do not move, do not panic. The stylist works quickly, methodically, ensuring each roller is fully saturated. She knows the stakes. Too little solution and the curl won't take. Too much, and things go wrong in ways that cannot be undone. Her face is calm, focused, betraying none of the calculations happening behind her eyes. This balance between confidence and danger is what makes the perm such a test of trust. Once the application is complete, the waiting begins. A timer is set with a sharp, decisive click. That sound lands heavily in your chest. Time, which is already slowed inside the salon, now becomes elastic and threatening. Too short, and the perm fails. Too long, and damage sets in. The timer sits there quietly, unassuming, holding your fate in its small mechanical hands. You are acutely aware of your scalp now. Every sensation is magnified. The tingling becomes more pronounced, then fades, then returns in waves. There is an itch that feels imaginary and very real at the same time. You tell yourself it's normal. Everyone tells themselves it's normal. The solution continues its work, breaking bonds, reshaping structure, forcing hair into a new memory it did not ask for. Conversation in the salon shifts subtly during this phase. Voices lower. The usual gossip pauses or softens. There is a shared understanding that this is a vulnerable moment. Someone across the room murmurs encouragement to a neighbor. You're almost there. It's worth it. These reassurances are offered freely, not because anyone knows the outcome, but because solidarity matters. You glance sideways and catch the eye of another woman mid-perm. Her expression mirrors your own mixture of resolve and doubt. There is comfort in this. You are not alone in this chemical gamble. Everyone here has chosen to sit still and hope. That choice binds you together more strongly than conversation ever could. The smell grows heavier as time passes, saturating the room. It clings to the air, to clothing, to hair. It will cling to memory too. Years from now, a similar scent will catch you off guard somewhere unexpected, and you will be transported back to this chair, this moment, this quiet test of endurance. The stylist checks the timer, then your hair, lifting a test curl carefully, peering at it with a practiced squint. This inspection feels invasive and reassuring at the same time. She does not share her thoughts. You would not know what to do with them if she did. Instead, she nods slightly and resets the curl, patting your shoulder in a gesture meant to calm. Minutes stretch. Your scalp feels tight, almost numb now. The earlier itch has settled into a dull awareness. You focus on breathing, on the sounds around you, the low hum of dryers, the rustle of magazines, the occasional clink of tools. Life continues around you as if nothing extraordinary is happening, and that somehow makes it easier. Then finally the timer rings. The sound cuts cleanly through the room, sharp and merciful. The stylist moves immediately, turning off the alarm and beginning the rinse without delay. Relief washes through you, even before the solution does. You have made it to this point. Whatever happens next, you have endured the worst of the waiting. As the rollers are rinsed and the chemical smell begins to fade, replaced by water and neutralizer, you feel a cautious optimism take root. You survive the tension, the smell, the fear. Survival itself feels like an accomplishment. Around you, others are emerging from the same trial, exchanging small smiles, nods of recognition. You did it. You sat still. You trusted. You endured. In the peculiar logic of the salon, that endurance counts for something. It earns you a place among those who have faced the perm and lived to tell the story. Hair transformed, nerves tested, courage quietly proven one roller at a time. The hood dryer descends with ceremony, though no one calls attention to it. The stylist adjusts the chair, checks the rollers once more, and then reaches up to lower the great plastic dome over your head. It moves on a metal arm with a soft mechanical resistance, hovering for a moment before settling into place. The space inside is close, personal, faintly warm even before it's turned on. Your reflection disappears, replaced by the curved interior of the dryer, cloudy with age and fine scratches from decades of use. You are enclosed now, sealed off from the room in a way that feels both protective and faintly ominous. There is a pause, just long enough for you to wonder if this is the last moment of quiet you will have for a while. Then the switch is flipped. The sound arrives all at once. A deep mechanical roar, somewhere between a jet engine and a determined vacuum cleaner, floods your ears. It is not subtle. It does not build gently. It announces itself with authority, filling the space around your head and pushing everything else away. Conversation across the salon becomes instantly unintelligible, reduced to moving mouths and animated gestures. The dryer does not hum. It dominates. Warm air begins to circulate, rushing evenly around your head, pressing against the rollers, drying, setting, locking everything into place. The heat is steady, not aggressive, but persistent. You feel it on your scalp, your ears, the back of your neck. The air carries the lingering sense of perm solution, shampoo and hairspray, blending them into something uniquely salon-shaped. You breathe it in slowly, deliberately. There is nowhere else for it to go. Time changes under the dryer. It loosens its grip, stretches, loses definition. Minutes stop behaving like minutes. They expand, fold over themselves, blur at the edges. You glance toward the clock mounted high on the wall, but through the curved plastic and the roar of air, it feels abstract, like watching time from underwater. You stop checking after a while. The dryer has its own schedule. You exist within it now. Your thoughts begin to drift in unusual directions. At first they are practical. You wonder how long you've been sitting there. You wonder if the heat is too high, if you should signal the stylist. You wonder if everyone feels this strange combination of comfort and confinement. Then the thoughts loosen, becoming less anchored. Old memories surface unexpectedly. Half-finished to-do lists dissolve. You replay conversations from years ago, the insignificant ones, the ones you never think about otherwise. The white noise of the dryer smooths the edges of everything, making even anxious thoughts feel distant, muffled. The sound is relentless but strangely soothing. It fills every gap, leaving no room for silence. It becomes a kind of auditory blanket, heavy and uniform. Your body responds by relaxing despite itself. Your shoulders drop. Your breathing evens out. Your head grows heavy inside the dome. You close your eyes, not to sleep exactly, but to rest in the absence of stimulation. The world outside the dryer fades further away. Across the salon you can see other women in identical positions, each beneath her own dome, each isolated in her own pocket of sound and heat. It is a strange sight, futuristic and deeply mundane at the same time. A row of quiet figures, heads encased, thoughts turned inward. No one speaks. There is no point. Communication under the dryer is reduced to gestures, to exaggerated movements and facial expressions when absolutely necessary. Occasionally someone raises a hand slightly, palm down, signaling that the heat is a little too much. A stylist appears, nods, adjusts a dial. Thumbs-up gestures are exchanged. A slow wave of the hand means a little longer. A quick flutter of fingers means, I'm fine. This silent language is understood instinctively, learned through repetition. Words are unnecessary here. The dryer has swallowed them whole. You notice how your sense of self shifts during this time. Without a mirror, without conversation, without external input, you become less defined. You are not performing. You are not responding. You simply are. Your identity narrows to physical sensations. Warmth, pressure, sound. The cape rests against your shoulders. The chair supports your weight. The dryer breathes steadily above you. Everything else recedes. Sleep creeps in gently. Not a full descent, but a hovering state where you drift in and out of awareness. Your chin dips slightly, then lifts again. Dreams flicker without narrative, made of images rather than stories. Light through a window. The smell of shampoo. A childhood kitchen. You surface briefly, then sink again. No one disturbs you. This is expected. Many women nap under the dryer. It is one of the few socially acceptable places to do so. In this suspended state, the dryer becomes a chrysalis. You are neither who you were when you sat down nor who you will be when you stand up. You are in between, cocooned in plastic and noise while something unseen takes shape. The rollers dry, the curl sets, structure forms quietly without your involvement. Change happens whether you are paying attention or not. The heat ebbs and flows slightly as the dryer cycles. Never enough to alarm you, just enough to remind you that the machine is active, alive in its own mechanical way. You wonder briefly how old it is, how many heads have sat beneath it, how many thoughts it has drowned out, how many transformations it has overseen without ceremony. The dryer does not care. It continues its work. At some point you realize you have been sitting very still for a long time. Your legs feel heavy. Your hands rest uselessly beneath the cape. You try to shift slightly, but movement feels unnecessary, even disruptive. Stillness has become the default. You surrender to it fully, letting the minutes do what they will. When the dryer finally shuts off, the silence is startling. The sudden absence of sound creates a hollow feeling, as if the air itself has been pulled away. Your ears ring faintly. The room rushes back in, voices and movement feeling too sharp at first. You blink, adjusting to the return of normal sound and perspective. The stylist lifts the dome away and cooler air washes over you, refreshing and almost shocking in its clarity. You feel dazed, slightly disoriented, as though waking from a deep nap in an unfamiliar place. Your head feels lighter than before, though the rollers are still there. Something has shifted. You cannot see it yet, but you feel it. The stylist checks your hair, nods with satisfaction and moves on. There is no dramatic reveal at this stage. That comes later. As you sit there, newly exposed to the room again, you notice the other women emerging from their own domes. Expressions range from serene to mildly confused. There are small smiles, shared glances, a collective sense of having passed through something together. No one comments on it directly. The dryer experience does not need explanation. It is understood. You straighten slightly in the chair, rolling your shoulders, reacquainting yourself with your body. Time resumes its normal shape, but something of the distortion lingers. You feel changed, not just in hair but in state of mind. Calmer, softer, more receptive to whatever comes next. The hood dryer has done its work. Not just drying, but isolating, quieting, reshaping. You entered it as yourself and emerged as someone a little more malleable, a little more willing to accept the transformation still unfolding. The chrysalis phase is over. Whatever you become next will step into the world bearing its marks, warmed, set, and subtly altered by the time you spent alone beneath the roar. The transformation reaches its most unapologetic phase the moment the rollers come out and the comb changes hands. This is when subtlety officially leaves the room. The stylist stands a little straighter now, feet planted with intention, comb held not as a grooming tool, but as an instrument of construction. What happens next is not styling in the gentle sense. It is engineering, structural, purposeful, unapologetically excessive. The first roller is unwound slowly, carefully, revealing a curl so tight it seems to spring away from the scalp on its own. The stylist lets it fall without smoothing it, without taming it, allowing it to exist in its raw, coiled state for just a moment. This is not what it will look like in the end. This is material. The curl is inspected briefly, then separated, lifted, and prepared for what comes next. One by one, the rollers are removed, each releasing another section of hair that wants very badly to return to the shape it had before chemistry intervened. The stylist does not allow it. That shape is history now. The teasing begins at the crown, always at the crown. This is the foundation. Without a strong base, nothing above it will hold. The comb moves quickly, decisively, pushed downward toward the scalp in short, sharp strokes that feel both precise and invasive. Hair is forced backward against itself, compacted, tangled intentionally. The sensation is unmistakable. It is not exactly painful, but it is deeply uncomfortable. A scraping pressure that sends small sparks of awareness across your scalp. You wince, then still yourself. Everyone does. Complaining would be pointless. This is necessary work. Each stroke of the comb creates resistance. Hair that once lay flat now fights, snarls, grips. Static electricity crackles faintly, invisible but present, lifting stray strands into the air. You feel it along your temples, behind your ears. A dry, prickling sensation that suggests your hair has become something charged, reactive, alive. The stylist pauses occasionally to assess, patting the teased section lightly, testing its firmness the way one might test the stability of a wall. If it gives too easily, she goes back in, more teasing, deeper, stronger. Around you, the salon has entered a different rhythm. The quiet dissociation of the dryer phase is gone, replaced by energy, motion, and purpose. Stylists move quickly between chairs. Combs flash. Bottles are shaken. The air begins to change again, thickening with anticipation and aerosol. This is the phase everyone recognizes from memory, the one most often exaggerated in stories. It earns the exaggeration honestly. Hair volume here is not merely aesthetic, it is social. Height communicates effort, resources, endurance. Bigger hair suggests more time, more product, more commitment. It implies status. Even if no one says so outright, you feel this instinctively as your hair rises, as your silhouette grows taller, more imposing. You sit differently without realizing it, chin lifted slightly, shoulders back. The architecture above your head changes how you occupy space. The stylist works outward from the foundation, shaping the teased mass into something intentional. Outer layers are smoothed carefully over the chaos beneath, creating the illusion of softness, while hiding the dense structure that supports it. This smoothing is gentle by comparison, almost tender, but the underlying tension remains. Every now and then, the comb catches unexpectedly, sending a sharp reminder through your scalp. You inhale quietly and let it pass. Endurance is part of the bargain. Static continues to build as hair is manipulated, lifted, coaxed into unnatural obedience. You feel individual strands pulling away from your head, reaching toward the comb, toward the air, as if magnetized. The sensation is strange and constant, a low-level awareness that your hair is no longer neutral. It has become reactive, volatile. The stylist adjusts her techniques slightly, compensating for your hair's temperament, her experience guiding her movements without conscious thought. Then the hairspray appears. The can is large, heavy, cylindrical, gripped with familiarity. When it's shaken, the rattle is loud and unmistakable, a warning and a promise. The stylist steps slightly to the side, positioning herself for maximum coverage. "Close your eyes," she says, "though you already have." The first spray is cold and forceful, hitting your hair with enough pressure that you feel it through the layers. The smell is immediate and overwhelming, sharp and chemical, filling your nose and mouth before you can avoid it. A cloud forms around your head almost instantly. Fine droplets hang in the air, catching the light, drifting outward before settling on every available surface. Shoes, capes, magazines. The salon itself becomes hazy, as though a fog has rolled in indoors. You hold your breath instinctively, then let it out, slowly, carefully. Breathing too deeply right now would be a mistake. The spray hardens your hair in stages. What was flexible moments ago becomes rigid, then fixed. You can feel it happening, a subtle tightening as each layer locks into place. The stylist sprays, pauses, pats, sprays again. This is not random. It is strategic. Each application reinforces the structure, sealing the teased interior beneath a shell of lacquered control. The outer surface begins to feel less like hair and more like an object. Other stylists are doing the same thing around the room. The sound of spraying overlaps, hissing and clicking in uneven rhythm. The air grows heavier, saturated. Someone coughs. Someone waves a magazine weakly in front of their face, attempting to clear a path through the fog. Doris at the desk barely looks up. This is normal. This is expected. As the spraying continues, your hair becomes armor. It resists touch. When the stylist presses lightly, it holds its shape. When she steps back and looks again, it remains unchanged. Gravity has been challenged and, for now, defeated. The height remains. The shape holds. There is a satisfaction in this, both for you and for her. You have won something invisible but meaningful. The pain and discomfort fade into the background as the structure takes form. Your scalp still tingles, still protests faintly, but it no longer matters. You are too aware of the result, the sheer improbability of it. The fact that your hair, which hours ago behaved like hair, now behaves like architecture. It occupies space deliberately. It casts a shadow. The final passes of spray are ceremonial. A light mist to finish, a heavier burst to reinforce. The stylist circles you, ensuring no weak points remain. This hairstyle is not meant to be delicate. It is meant to endure wind, movement, attention. It is meant to last days, not hours. It must survive sleep, weather, and social scrutiny. Anything less would be failure. When the spraying stops, the air slowly begins to clear, though the smell will linger for the rest of the day. You open your eyes cautiously. Your reflection is not yet revealed, but you feel the difference immediately. Your head feels heavier, balanced differently. When you move slightly, there is resistance, a subtle reminder that what sits above your shoulders is no longer flexible. It has been set. Around you, other women are reaching the same stage. There are small smiles exchanged, nods of recognition. You have all been through the teasing, the static, the fog. You have all endured the same sensations in pursuit of the same goal. This shared absurdity is comforting. No one here looks normal, and that is the point. Hair in this moment is not about softness or ease. It is about presence, protection, control. It frames your face like a shield, announces your effort before you speak. In a world that demands so much restraint elsewhere, here is excess made respectable. Here is victory over gravity, achieved one comb stroke and one cloud of spray at a time. The stylist steps back at last, hands on her hips, surveying her work with satisfaction. You are not finished yet, but the hardest part is over. The structure stands. The engineering has held. Whatever happens next will decorate this foundation, not dismantle it. You sit very still, aware that you are wearing something both ridiculous and powerful, something that required pain, endurance, and faith to create. In the peculiar logic of the Salon, this is triumph. The reveal does not arrive with a drum roll. It comes quietly, almost casually, which somehow makes it more intimidating. The stylist steps behind you and reaches for the hand mirror, lifting it with a practiced motion that suggests confidence, expectation, and a touch of pride. The main mirror in front of you has already been offering hints, fragments of shape and shadow, but now there is no avoiding the full picture. This is the moment when imagination and reality finally meet, and neither is guaranteed to be polite. The mirror tilts, and there you are, or at least a version of you. Your first reaction is not joy or horror, but disbelief. The hair is bigger than you expected, higher, more deliberate. It occupies space in a way your hair never has before. It does not move when you blink. It does not soften when you tilt your head. It exists independently, a structure with its own rules. You study it carefully, searching for familiarity, for reassurance. You recognize your face beneath it, framed by something that feels both protective and slightly aggressive. The stylist waits. This pause is important. She knows better than to speak too soon. Clients need a moment, sometimes several, to process what they're seeing. You turn your head slowly from side to side, watching how the shape holds. The hand mirror reveals angles you didn't know you had. The back is immaculate, smooth and impossibly full, a landscape you would never see without assistance. You nod reflexively, because nodding is what one does in moments like this. Gratitude is expected. Shock must be managed. You offer a compliment that feels safe. It's very nice. The stylist beams, as if you've delivered a standing ovation. She adjusts a small section near your temple, patting it gently, reassuringly. "It'll last you all week," she says, and you believe her because the hair looks capable of surviving more than time. It looks capable of surviving weather, scrutiny, perhaps minor natural disasters. There is a strange emotional layering that settles in at this stage. You feel thankful because effort has clearly been expended on your behalf. You feel proud because you endured the process and emerged intact. You also feel a quiet panic because this is now your hair and you will have to take it into the world. You wonder how it will feel to sleep. You wonder how it will look under daylight. You wonder if you've just crossed an invisible line from styled into memorable. The cape is removed with a soft snap at the neck, a reversal of the ritual that began hours ago. Air reaches your shoulders again. Your clothes feel unfamiliar after so long beneath plastic. As you stand, you notice the subtle shift in balance, the way your head feels slightly heavier, your posture unconsciously adjusting to compensate. The stylist brushes stray hairs from your collar, then steps back, satisfied. The chair is turned away from the mirror, signaling that the reveal phase is complete. There is nothing more to be done here. Acceptance is the final step. You gather your things slowly, deliberately. Purse, gloves, coat. Each movement feels ceremonial, as though you're preparing to leave a stage. As you approach the front desk, the glow of accomplishment is interrupted by a familiar, sobering object. The bill. Doris slides it towards you without ceremony, her expression unreadable. The paper is small, unassuming, but the number printed on it carries weight. You glance down, then glance again, just to be sure. The total is always higher than you expect, no matter how many times you've done this. Shampoo, set, perm, style, products. Each line item represents a moment you barely noticed while it was happening. Together they add up to a reminder that beauty is not just endured, but purchased. You feel a flicker of resentment, quickly smothered by resignation. This was never meant to be cheap. The price is part of the ritual. You reach into your purse, fingers brushing against bills and coins as you calculate silently. There is an art to paying the salon bill, a choreography of gratitude and restraint. You want to show appreciation without appearing reckless. You want to tip well enough to be remembered kindly, but not so extravagantly that you regret it later. This calculation happens quickly but intensely, a private negotiation conducted under the watchful eye of the receptionist. You add the tip, sliding it forward with a small nod, hoping it conveys exactly the right balance of thanks and dignity. Doris acknowledges it with a glance, perhaps a smile if you're lucky. She hands you a receipt and an appointment card for next time, already assuming your return. The future has been penciled in before you've even left the building. This, too, is part of the system. The door opens and daylight spills in. The outside world feels louder, sharper, less forgiving than it did when you entered. As you step onto the sidewalk, you become acutely aware of your hair's presence. The air moves around it but does not disturb it. You catch reflections in windows, in car mirrors, in the glass of shop fronts. Each reflection confirms that this is real, that this is what you look like now. People notice. They may not stare openly, but you feel their attention. A glance that lingers, a double take, a smile that suggests admiration or confusion, sometimes both. Your hair announces itself before you speak, before you move. It becomes part of your identity in a way that feels both empowering and exposing. You walk a little taller, if only because slouching feels incompatible with the structure above your shoulders. The sounds of the street feel different now. Footsteps echo, cars pass. Somewhere a dog barks. All of it feels like a backdrop, secondary to the quiet awareness that you are carrying something extraordinary. You imagine neighbors peering through curtains. You imagine comments later, at dinner, at the store, at church. Some will be kind, some will be curious. A few may be unkind. None of that matters right now. What matters is that you have stepped into public space transformed. As you walk, you replay the day in fragments. The smell of chemicals, the roar of the dryer, the sting of teasing, the mirror, the bill. Each moment feels connected, part of a single long arc that led here. The discomfort, the patience, the expense all crystallize into this final act, being seen. By the time you reach home, your hair feels less foreign. You have adjusted to its weight, its shape. You navigate doorways carefully, aware of light fixtures and low shelves. You catch your reflection one more time, alone now, without the salon's lights or mirrors. It still surprises you, but the shock has softened into something like acceptance. The reveal is over. The bill is paid. The walk home is complete. What remains is the consequence of it all. A new version of yourself, lacquered and elevated, carrying the quiet knowledge that beauty, once achieved, does not belong solely to you. It belongs to the world that sees it, judges it, remembers it. And tonight, whether you feel ready or not, you are unmistakably part of that world. What happens after the salon is the part no one advertises. The quiet stretch of days where the promise of perfection slowly negotiates with reality. You return home buoyed by the experience, hair still humming faintly with chemical memory, posture unconsciously adjusted to accommodate its new height and stiffness. That first evening, everything feels possible. You move carefully, reverently, as though your head is carrying something fragile and ceremonial. You avoid sudden gestures. You keep your chin level. You learn very quickly where the low door frames are. The bag of samples sits on your kitchen counter like a talisman. It is small but heavy with expectation. Inside are travel-sized bottles and tubes, some clearly labeled, others less so, each one promising maintenance, longevity, and control. Words like refresh, revive, and daily care appear in friendly fonts that suggest ease. You read the instructions carefully as though they are sacred text. Apply sparingly, do not overwork, avoid moisture. These rules seem reasonable now, standing safely inside, hair still pristine. That first night becomes an exercise in choreography. Sleeping is no longer a passive activity. It is strategic. You circle the bed slowly, evaluating angles, pillow firmness, the position of your neck. You try to remember what the stylist said, something about sleeping upright, or on your side, or not sleeping at all if possible. Eventually, exhaustion wins, and you lie down with a care normally reserved for museum artifacts. Your neck stiffens, your shoulders protest. You drift off anyway because everyone does. Morning brings the first reckoning. You wake slowly, afraid to move too quickly, testing the air with small motions of your head. Some sections have held beautifully. Others have developed ideas of their own overnight. A ridge here, a flattened patch there. Nothing catastrophic yet, but enough to introduce doubt. You reach for the sample bottle labeled rejuvenating mist, spray lightly and pat carefully, hoping to coax the structure back into compliance. It works, sort of. You leave the house reassured but alert. By the second day, the world begins to interfere. Humidity arrives unannounced, clinging to your hair with quiet malice. It does not ruin the style outright. That would be too obvious. Instead, it softens edges, loosens the crispness, introduces a halo where none existed before. You feel it before you see it, a subtle change in texture, a resistance that wasn't there yesterday. You excuse yourself to the restroom, inspect the damage under unforgiving lighting, and reach for a bobby pin. Pins become your allies now. You learn which ones disappear best, which ones grip without pulling, which ones surrender halfway through the day. You carry them everywhere, tucked into pockets, purses, glove compartments. Scarves join the rotation, tied artfully when things go well, more defensively when they don't. A scarf can disguise a multitude of sins, and you learn to appreciate its versatility deeply. The sample bottles dwindle quickly. They were never meant to last the week. Their purpose is hope, not sustainability. You squeeze the last of a thick cream from its tube, shaking it upside down, pressing and folding, bargaining with it silently. When it finally gives up a small, unsatisfying dollop, you apply it anyway, stretching it farther than intended. This is not what the salon version of you would have done, but the salon version of you does not have to make things last until Saturday. By midweek, improvisation becomes second nature. You adjust your routine daily, responding to new challenges as they appear. Wind flattens one side. Moisture frizzes another. You develop a signature maneuver in front of the mirror, a sequence of pats, lifts, and sprays performed with the focus of someone diffusing a device. Sometimes it works beautifully. Sometimes it does not. You learn to accept both outcomes with equal grace. Conversations begin to accumulate around your hair. Compliments, questions, sideways glances. "It still looks great," someone says kindly, even as you notice the frizz they are politely ignoring. You smile and thank them, understanding that appearance is as much about confidence as control. You tell yourself that lived in is a look, that softness can be intentional, that perfection was never meant to last. By Thursday, the style has developed character. The sharp lines have relaxed. The volume has redistributed itself unevenly. You no longer fight it as hard. You lean into the parts that still work and conceal the ones that don't. This is where ingenuity shines. A pin placed just so. A scarf folded differently. A part shifted by a fraction. You are no longer maintaining the style. You are negotiating with it. The mirror becomes more forgiving as the week goes on. Or perhaps you do. You stop aiming for the salon image and start aiming for survival. Clean, presentable, intentional enough. You recognize this stage from previous visits, even if you never named it. This is the in-between time, where the style belongs fully to you, stripped of professional support and salon lighting. It is less impressive but more honest. By the time you return to the salon the following week, you are carrying more than just hair that needs attention. You are carrying stories. You tell them as you hang up your coat, as you settle into the chair. The humidity ambush, the scarf that saved a dinner party, the pin that vanished at exactly the wrong moment. These stories are currency. They are proof that you lived with the style, that you tried, that you endured. The stylist listens, nodding knowingly, already assessing what went wrong and what could be improved next time. Adjustments will be made, products swapped, techniques refined. The cycle begins again, not as repetition, but as continuation. Each visit builds on the last, informed by what happened in the days between. This is the rhythm of it all. Salon to home, home to salon, hope to reality to hope again. The perfection is fleeting, but the ritual is constant. You do not come back because the style lasted flawlessly. You come back because the process matters, because the transformation, however temporary, punctuates time. It divides the week into before and after. It gives shape to anticipation. Between visits is where reality lives, where hair behaves like hair again, where control is partial and improvisation reigns. It is not glamorous, but it is familiar. And as you sit back down in the chair, ready to surrender once more, you understand that this space between appointments is not a failure of the system. It is the system. By the time you reach the end of this long ritual, it becomes clear that the hair was never really the point. It mattered, of course. It took time, money, patience, and no small amount of courage. But what lingered, what carried weight beyond the mirror, was everything that happened around it. The salon existed as a room where women gathered not just to be changed, but to be held, loosely and imperfectly, by something shared. It was a place where the outside world paused, where expectations softened, where lives that often felt isolated unfolded in parallel. These salons functioned as community centers long before anyone used that language. They were spaces carved out of ordinary days where women could sit together without explanation. You didn't need a reason to be there beyond showing up. No invitation was required. No agenda was set. You arrived, you waited, you endured, and in doing so you became part of a living network. Information flowed, stories accumulated. Small kindnesses passed quietly from one chair to the next. Someone would hold a purse. Someone would pass a magazine. Someone would notice if you looked tired and say nothing, which was sometimes the greatest kindness of all. Support here was rarely dramatic. It didn't announce itself. It lived in nods, in shared glances beneath hood dryers, in the way a woman would scoot her chair slightly to make room without being asked. It lived in laughter that erupted at the absurdity of the process itself. Laughter that acknowledged how strange it all was and how willing everyone was to participate anyway. Humor softened the edges of discomfort. It made the waiting lighter, the pain tolerable, the outcomes easier to accept. Jokes were currency too, exchanged freely, no tip required. Endurance was the unspoken common language. Everyone in the room understood what it meant to sit still longer than was comfortable. to submit to processes that promised improvement but demanded patience. That shared endurance created a quiet respect. No one needed to prove toughness. Simply being there was enough. The salon recognized effort in a way the outside world often didn't. It rewarded showing up, sitting down, staying put. It allowed women to be both vulnerable and strong at the same time, a combination that rarely found space elsewhere. Over time, the chaos of the salon became a kind of comfort. The noise, the smells, the interruptions, the unpredictability all settled into something familiar. You learned what to expect, even when you couldn't predict outcomes. There was safety in the routine. The very things that once felt overwhelming began to feel grounding. The roar of the dryer, the sting of spray, the weight of the cape all signaled that you were in a place where time moved differently, where expectations were temporarily suspended. These salons mattered because they acknowledged complexity without trying to resolve it. Women arrived carrying the weight of families, jobs, disappointments, hopes, and obligations that never truly paused. The salon did not fix those things. It did not pretend to. It offered something quieter instead. A few hours where those burdens could be set down without explanation, where care was administered without interrogation, where someone else decided what came next, and that decision was trusted. There was resilience built into every part of the experience, not the loud, triumphant kind, but the steady kind that accumulates through repetition. Week after week, visit after visit, women returned not because it was easy, but because it was familiar. Because familiarity creates strength. Because returning meant continuity, and continuity meant stability. The salon marked time in a way calendars never could. Before the appointment, after the appointment, the space between visits where life happened. Looking back now, with modern convenience taken for granted, it's hard not to feel a gentle gratitude for quick showers, for adjustable sinks, for products labeled clearly, for styles that don't require hours of endurance, for tools that heat evenly and quietly, for appointments that don't consume entire mornings. These conveniences matter. They save time, effort, energy. They make care more accessible. And yet something was lost when everything became efficient. What disappeared was not the discomfort, but the togetherness, the forced stillness, the shared waiting, the conversations that only happened because there was nothing else to do. Modern salons move quickly, efficiently, politely. They respect time, but time, when respected too much, doesn't linger. It doesn't gather stories. It doesn't invite drifting thoughts or unexpected connections. The old salons were imperfect by design. They demanded patience and offered companionship in return. They asked for endurance and rewarded it with belonging. They transformed chaos into something manageable by spreading it across a room full of people who understood. You didn't leave lighter because your hair looked better. You left lighter because you weren't carrying everything alone for a while. As the years moved on and the rituals faded, the memory of those rooms softened. What remained was not the smell of chemicals or the ache in the neck, but the feeling of being part of something slow and communal, of being seen without being scrutinized, of being allowed to rest inside routine. And so, as this story settles, there's no grand conclusion to reach for, just a quiet acknowledgement. These salons mattered because they held space, because they gave permission to pause, because they turned waiting into companionship and discomfort into shared experience, because they allowed women to support women without needing a name for it. If you're listening now, letting the rhythm of these chapters carry you toward rest, you can let that feeling linger, the sense of being held gently by repetition, of time stretching without urgency, of noise becoming white and harmless, of thoughts drifting without needing resolution. There's nothing left to do. The dryer has shut off. The chair is still. The mirrors no longer demand attention. You can rest here in the afterglow of something familiar and human, and let the story fade the way those afternoons always did, slowly, softly, without asking anything more from you.